All right, welcome to week 2. My name is Sam. I'm your instructor. I probably should have introduced myself through the video on week 1, but I didn't, and so here we are. I hope you're coming along pretty good. Please make sure you read your weekly announcements every week. Make sure that you read the guiding questions and week preview or week summary at the top of each module, so you know kind of what's coming up that week and what's expected. With that said, we're going to jump into the book of Genesis real quick, and I'm just going to kind of give you an overview, an arc of the book of Genesis. Genesis is the book of beginnings. What you see in Genesis is the beginning of the universe. You see the beginning of life. You see the beginning of family, the beginning of cities and culture, even the start of empires. You also see that when God creates everything, He declares it good. But very quickly, even in the 3rd chapter, something enters into the picture. That thing is sin. It enters into the picture, and according to Christian theology, it affects us even today. We look at the world around us, and one of the things that we see is we see poverty, we see war, we see seemingly innocent people suffer, we see sickness and disease. And we wonder, why is the world not the way it should be? And there are, people and movements that are set up with the sole purpose of trying to make the world a better place. And really what they're trying to do is rescue this world from the effects of sin, which we see started here in the book of Genesis. We see that those effects pile up pretty quickly up into the story of Noah, and we see that the whole world is seen as wicked. And God kind of zeroes in on one guy, and He chooses that guy, saves that guy and his family, and kind of starts from scratch. From that point, we move quickly to another man named Abraham. Now, the rest of the book of Genesis will be about this man and his family. He's initially called Abram. That's his name, is Abram. But God will change his name to Abraham. And God makes a covenant with this man. Theologians call it the Abrahamic covenant. And it is what they call a unilateral covenant. And what it means is basically that one party promises something, and the other party is not really obligated or obliged to respond in any way to receive that promise. It's unilateral. In other words, God is promising things to Abraham without any kind of response required from Abraham. And for the rest of the book, you're going to see this covenant kind of play out. And part of that covenant is that, look, I'm gonna make you a father of many nations. Abraham at the time is an old man. He's kind of, like, I just don't know if this will ever happen. He tries a few different things, but eventually he does have a son by the name of Isaac. Isaac, in turn, has 2 sons, Esau and Jacob. And one of those sons, Jacob, will take on the family name, so to speak. Jacob's name will eventually be changed to Israel. Now, Israel will become the father of the 12 tribes. He will have 12 sons, and all of those sons, every Jew, modern-day Jew, every Jew in the Bible, seek to trace their ancestry back to one of those 12 sons. Okay, that's why they're generally called the 12 tribes of Israel. Then what you have is, in this story, we see that this family is going to basically be the fathers of a huge nation that will develop eventually. And that's basically what the rest of the Old Testament is about. It's about God dealing with the world through this nation called Israel. We refer to them as Hebrews. Sometimes we refer to them as Jews, or Israelites, or the people of Israel. So those are all kind of interchangeable names. One of the things you're going to find in the book of Genesis is that it is a very real book. You're going to see a lot of realism in Genesis. There's a lot of family conflict. You think your family may be kind of dysfunctional. I'm telling you, Jacob or Israel's family is extremely dysfunctional. For one thing, he's got several wives and several children from each of those wives, so there's going to be issues. Just one quick story to kind of let you, actually a couple stories, just kind of let you know how dysfunctional this family was. They were herders, and they were next to this kingdom with their flocks. And the king and his son come out, and the son kind of falls in love with one of Jacob's daughters. And I mean, he's got it bad for her, and he wants to marry her. But they're not real crazy about marrying just anybody. They're a peculiar type of people. And anyway, what ends up happening is this man, this young prince, he can't really control himself, and when he finds himself alone with Jacob's daughter, he ends up raping her. Jacob's sons, one of them was Levi, were infuriated by this, and so they came out and they're trying to, they have this huge meeting. They're trying to figure out what to do, and Jacob finally comes to the agreement. Look, we'll let him marry our daughter, but all of you guys, you have to be circumcised. Well, this plays right into Jacob's son's hands because they're looking to avenge their sister. And what ends up happening is these guys end up getting circumcised. And if these are full-grown men, if you're a man, I'm sure you can probably appreciate the pain that these guys are probably going to be in for the next few days. And on one of the worst days, I think like the second or third day, they're extremely sore from this procedure. Jacob's sons decide to storm the city, and they kill almost every man in the city in response to the raping of their sister. So you see that these guys are pretty vicious. These same guys, they actually later on in the book end up turning on their little brother. His name's Joseph. Many of you are probably familiar with this story. But anyway, Joseph's brothers are jealous of him. They turn on him. They end up selling him into bondage down in Egypt. And eventually what happens is the whole family, I'm not going to kind of give away the details of the story, but the whole family ends up going down into Egypt, about 70 of them. And that family will go down into Egypt as a large extended family, but they will come out some 400 years later as a nation in the book of Exodus. They will be in the hundreds of thousands or millions of people when they come out of Exodus. And eventually they will settle into what they call the Promised Land, or the land of Canaan, or what we call modern-day Palestine today. So that's kind of just an arc of the book. A couple of other things real quick. As you're reading the book, there's a lot of stuff in Genesis that I would just love to cover. There's a lot of interesting things in the book of Genesis I would love to cover. But grade-wise, I just can't cover it all, or y'all have a ton of assignments. So if you're reading through anything and you got any questions or anything you'd like to comment on, use the Q&A forum to do that, or the Q&A cafe. I don't even know what I called it, but use that to do that. I'll give you just a brief example. Theologians have debated about this passage, but there's just this weird passage in Genesis, I think chapter 6, verses 1 to like 5 or 7 or something like that, where it talks about the sons of God coming down and procreating with the sons of men. And it's just kind of a weird little insert there. And there's all kinds of theories bantied about by theologians and things that are just weird, ridiculous, things that seem kind of okay to accept. And so just read that passage. If you got any questions on that or any other kinds of passages, there's some, like I say, it's a very real book and graphic in some places. You have a man having children with his 2 daughters, and I mean all kinds of stuff going on in the book of Genesis. So if you got any questions or anything like that, man, just please don't hesitate to put that up on the Q&A cafe, and we'll talk about those. They won't be graded, but that'll be a topic of discussion, to say the least. Anyway, get into the book of Genesis. Make sure you keep up with your assignments. You got 2 writing assignments and a forum discussion this week, so keep up with that. If you got any questions, contact me. Good luck.